Hello everybody, and welcome back to another Game News Roundup where we discuss the latest gaming news, sales figures, and whatnot. And here we are again. There's always something going on with Microsoft's Activision Blizzard acquisition. And recently, the UK regulator, the Competition and Markets Authority, did release an addendum to its provisional findings as it's based on new evidence that led it to conclude that if the acquisition is approved, it won't significantly lessen competition in the video game console market in the UK and is now focused on cloud streaming as its main issue against the deal at the moment. And now Sony has released its response to this addendum, which was published today by the CMA. So, direct quote from Sony: the CMA's reversal of its position on its console's theory of harm is surprising, unprecedented, and irrational. The provisional findings assessed a significant body of evidence in the round to support its findings that Microsoft would have the ability and incentives to withhold Activision content, and that this would substantially lessen competition by foreclosing PlayStation. The findings that the CMA had basically said Microsoft would end up losing way too much money if they were to pull Call of Duty away from PlayStation consoles. So that would incentivize Microsoft to keep releasing Call of Duty on PlayStation consoles if it wants to keep making money with the Call of Duty franchise. And as I've mentioned before, Microsoft has signed a deal with Nintendo to bring Call of Duty to Nintendo platforms for 10 years, day and date, with full content parity. And they have offered the same deal to Sony, although Sony has not signed the deal. Sony added the addendum takes a diametrically opposite approach and focuses almost exclusively on a single economic model on which it places significant more weight than other available evidence. That model, which is based on the lifetime value of an average gamer, is used to estimate Microsoft's incentives to make Call of Duty exclusive to Xbox. The provisional findings contain a similar analysis based on then available lifetime value data, which found that Microsoft would have strong incentives to foreclose. The addendum reaches a different conclusion based on new assumptions and preliminarily concludes that a revised lifetime value suggests that making Call of Duty exclusive to Xbox would result in a significant financial loss for Microsoft post-merger, and as a result, Microsoft would not have an incentive to withhold Call of Duty from PlayStation. Also, in their response, Sony, they seem to be fairly worried still that Microsoft will release a worse version, a degraded version of Call of Duty on PlayStation consoles to incentivize Call of Duty players on PlayStation to buy the Xbox version because it'll be better. This is what Sony is claiming, although Microsoft says they won't do this, and they are willing to pay for a third-party company or whatever, like Digital Foundry, to make sure that the two versions are the same or within tolerable similarities where there's no obvious differences between the PlayStation and Xbox versions. So, again, direct quote from Sony: today, Activision goes to great lengths to promote console competition by releasing an equally high-quality Call of Duty game on PlayStation and Xbox while making use of their somewhat different technical capabilities. Post-transaction, Microsoft would have different incentives because degrading the experience on PlayStation would benefit Xbox, PlayStation's closest rival. Microsoft would have no incentive to make use of the advanced features in PlayStation not found on Xbox, like the adaptive triggers, haptic feedback, and whatnot in their DualSense controllers. Microsoft would have, I already read that, yeah, yet the addendum claims that Microsoft would not have the ability to engage in partial foreclosure. It does not so, despite its recognition that Call of Duty is critically important for console competition and that fully withholding Call of Duty would foreclose PlayStation. The addendum's implication is that Microsoft would degrade Call of Duty on PlayStation, including simply by not making it as good as it could be, raise its prices, release the game at a later date, or make it available only on Game Pass without harming competition between PlayStation and Xbox. This finding is unsubstantiated and inconsistent with the evidence. It appears to be based on speculation that the deterioration in Call of Duty would be modest, and as a result, that the CMA would expect only a fraction of gamers would switch to Xbox. Yet, it is difficult to conceive of an industry where consumers are more attuned to quality and where quality affects purchasing decisions. Call of Duty gamers are passionate, knowledgeable, and sophisticated. Gamers engage with each title in the franchise immediately after its release, are keenly aware of a game's price, quality, and features, and regularly compares the quality, performance, and features of their favorite games across PlayStation and Xbox. Mind you, PlayStation has had a deal with Activision Blizzard to have full marketing rights, as well as some exclusive content, or getting some content early on the PlayStation version over the Xbox version since the 2013 or 2014, so nearly a decade at this point. And of course, before that, Microsoft had a deal with Activision Blizzard for the same thing, except on the 360. So yeah, Sony has paid for some exclusive stuff, whether it's timed or full exclusive, and then Microsoft did the same years ago as well with Call of Duty. Sony stated that within a week of release, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, that analysis group, Digital Foundry released a comparison of the game between PS5 and Series X and S, while VGTech compared the frame rates of the game on PS5 and Series X. Sony says these types of comparisons are highly influential, basically saying if it shows the Xbox version runs better, has higher frame rates, it might get some people to buy the Xbox version or the PlayStation version of Call of Duty. And there's also a quote from Sony Interactive President and CEO Jim Ryan. Basically said that a degraded version of Call of Duty on PlayStation would seriously damage our reputation. Our gamers would desert our platform in droves, and network effects would exacerbate the problem. Our business would never recover. Basically saying that if Microsoft released a worse version of Call of Duty on PlayStation than Xbox, that it sounded like millions and millions of Call of Duty players would be swapping to PlayStation if Microsoft were to do so. And he's claiming also that the PlayStation business would never recover. I mean, mind you, Call of Duty is one franchise. I mean, I realize Call of Duty is like the best-selling game every year, other than I think when like Grand Theft Auto 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2 launched. So other than a big Rockstar game, Call of Duty has been the best-selling game every year, at least in the U.S. Worldwide, I don't know, it might be FIFA. It's hard to say. Although, if you aren't aware, FIFA, I say it's going away. It's more of that EA is losing the rights to the FIFA name and is changing the name to FC, EA Sports FC, I believe. Yeah, EA Sports FC. I just wrote an article on it, I think I'd remember. So yeah, Jim Ryan basically claiming if the Call of Duty on PlayStation is a degraded version, worse version than an Xbox, it would damage PlayStation's reputation of basically high-quality games. Mind you, I should add that I'm sure most of you are aware, recently Sony did release a port of The Last of Us Part 1, the remake on PlayStation 5, on the PC, and it has had a lot of technical issues, visual issues, and whatnot. Digital Foundry did post a video, and a bunch of other gaming analysts have posted videos, and you've seen pictures online. But Naughty Dog, they are working to improve the game and make sure it's up to their quality of standard, though I feel like they should have just delayed the game. I don't know. It seems to be par for the course that so many games are released with issues and technical problems, bugs, glitches, game-breaking things, and weird pop-ins. I don't know why that's a thing now with games. I feel like games should be delayed if it's needed. Just delay it. I don't blame the developers of releasing a poor game or whatever. It's more the fact that the publishers or whatever, the heads of the studios, just kind of forced the game out before it was really ready. Everyone has done it. No. But some are definitely far more egregious and worse than others, for sure. But yeah, anyways, Sony does say the addendum from the CMA ignore this testimony from Ryan. And assume that even a degraded version of the series on PlayStation would not cause gamers to switch from PlayStation to Xbox. So yeah, direct quote from Sony after they posted Jim Ryan's quote. The addendum appears to ignore this testimony, together with other evidence showing that the sensitivity of gamers, and assumes that even though Call of Duty is acknowledged to be important for console competition, it could be degraded without causing gamers to switch. This speculation is unsubstantiated, inconsistent with the facts, and cannot rationally support a decision to find that no SLC will arise in consoles. The addendum does not justify the CMA's U-turn on the console's theory of harm. The revised LTV model is Words are hard sometimes. But anyways, by errors that bias the model to finding no incentive to Microsoft to foreclose. The addendum jettisons without sound reason the PF's the provisional findings, thorough analysis of other evidence establishing Microsoft's incentive, and the addendum's partial foreclosure discussion is based on pure speculation rather than evidence. To reach a robust decision, the CMA should revisit its analysis of Microsoft's incentives and partial foreclosure, correcting for the errors identified in this paper. So yes, Jim Ryan, Sony, PlayStation, they're still trying everything they can to get the deal blocked and not passed, which makes sense that they would do everything they can to stop it, because think about how much money... Yeah, I mean, Call of Duty, sells, 10, 20 million copies each version on PlayStation. Then you think about all the microtransactions and DLC purchased by Call of Duty players. And then, obviously, I'm sticking on PlayStation, buying other PlayStation games. Versus, if they were to make the swap to Xbox, then obviously, those microtransactions, all that extra money would be going to Xbox and Microsoft instead of Sony and PlayStation. As well as them owning an Xbox would buy the Xbox first-party exclusives compared to PlayStation's first-party exclusives. But mind you, Microsoft does release all of their games day and date on PC and Game Pass. And PlayStation they are starting to release their games on PC, but there is a delay between the PC and PlayStation versions. I believe they have come out and said that any major new releases, it will be at least a 12-month gap, if not more. So, like, say, God of War Ragnarok came out last November. We wouldn't be seeing it on PC till at least this November, 2023. Maybe not until 2024 on PC. Also, because there's also been over a year since Horizon Forbidden West did release on the PlayStation 4 and 5. But we have yet to see any official announcements on it coming to PC, even though they have been releasing all their games on PC. I would expect it to eventually come to PC. Same with God of War Ragnarok. And other first-party games to eventually make their way to PC. But yeah, Sony's basically showing that they're clearly still worried about the Microsoft Activision Blizzard deal. Worried that Microsoft might either make Call of Duty just Xbox console exclusive, or worried that it being on Game Pass, or they're worried that Microsoft will degrade the PlayStation version so players will go to the Xbox version over the PlayStation version, and whatnot. So, anyways, yeah, that is the latest news from Microsoft's Activision Blizzard acquisition. I believe the CMA has a deadline towards the end of this month. I think it's like April 25th or 26th or so to make their final, findings on the deal, I believe. So hopefully the next few weeks we'll at least have the UK regulators' decision whether they pass the deal or they block it. And then I believe the European Commission, the European Union regulators have until later, sometime in May, for their deadline. And then there's also the FTC in the US, which at this point, I don't know what's going to happen. If it does go to a lawsuit and a trial or whatever, that won't be till sometime this summer, I believe, not even later at this point. We'll see how things go. It's still, again, it needs approval. UK, European Union, US are the big ones, but also, China, Canada, and a bunch of others. And so far, I think it's 4 or 5 countries have approved the deal. Japan being the most recent one. Give me a moment. Yeah, here we go. From last month, Japan has approved Microsoft's Activision Blizzard acquisition. But honestly, as I've mentioned before, that's not a surprise considering Microsoft has like a 2 or 3% market share in Japan. So, and Activision Blizzard games like Call of Duty never sold that well in Japan, so it's not going to make any real difference in the gaming market in Japan. So it's not a surprise that they have approved it. Also, yeah, here it is. It's also been approved in Chile, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, and Serbia. So, it's been approved in a handful of countries, but it's got many more to go, and we'll see how things go. Hopefully, we'll have a better idea in the next month or two. And if it gets approved in the UK and European Union, I think that's a good sign for the deal being approved. And obviously, if one of them ends up blocking it, that's a bad sign of the deal actually getting passed. So, we'll find out. And again, if you're not already, be sure to subscribe. Hit the like button so you get notified. Yeah, be sure, hit the something about notification bell or whatever so you get notified. I will be reporting on all of the latest Activision Blizzard news, any other gaming news and sales. Also, if you want to catch this, the link's down below, VGChartz.com. And thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all next time for some more Game News Roundup.